Number one biggest mistake people make with retirement or early retirement. This is the thing that is stopping most people. And please remember, I'm making this video to try to help you, not to judge you. I did a little bit of research because I thought, in my mind, this is the thing that stops most people from retiring early or on time or even late. And I wanted to see if a bunch of people had talked about it. So I went on YouTube University and I hadn't seen this come up. I saw lists on the Google search of all kinds of mistakes people make in retirement. And I'm going to try to get to my point in the first couple of minutes for those people that are always in a rush. Because if you want your questions answered during a live stream, every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I do a live stream that lasts a couple of hours where I actually answer all of the questions in the chat. Today, I'm doing this on my phone. It's going to be a short video for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. But in those lists of mistakes that people make when retiring early, and each one of these could probably be their video on their own, but they're not the biggest mistake, the thing that is stopping people in their tracks. And I saw things like, I'm unsure how to get health care, so I'm going to continue working. Or as I saw in a recent comment, I'm working part-time so I can get health care. I sent that person a video because I have videos on how to get health care in retirement, and don't let that thing be a thing that traps you in a job, even a job you like, because if you have to work, you're trapped. Have an asset for every expense. People will say things like, oh, if I work one more year, my retirement will be better. So you're trading good years for not so good years, and that is a disease that will last a long time. It lasted 4 years for me. I reached financial freedom 2018, worked for 4 more years, loved my job, but I thought one more year itis. 2022 I retired, been retired 2 years now, because I stopped that mistake. There's people who just don't plan for retiring. That's most people. And I don't mean most people like 51%, but I mean like 99.9 and a half of the remaining decimal percent don't even plan for retirement. Then you have people who take Social Security at the wrong time. You have people who only think of finances and not what they're going to do with their time. Right? Take this from the Joe Kuhn channel that I recommend often that you check out, where he talks about retire to something, not from something. You're not retiring to money. You're retiring to what you're going to do with your time, because money is not a factor that you have to sell your life for 1 hour at a time. And I saw these lists and I thought these are all valid reasons. These are good excuses to focus on to make your retirement better or your early retirement possible. But nobody talked about this one. Housing. This is the biggest barrier to retirement and early retirement for most people. And I'm going to relate it to my personal story. And again, not judging you, trying to help you. That's my goal. Whether you retire early or retire or not, I want to make your retirement, when it happens, better. I used buy and hold real estate to reach financial freedom. There's several ways to reach financial freedom, right? You can start and grow a business. You can invest in stocks. You can invest in crypto. You can invest several different ways into real estate. I chose buy and hold real estate. And because I was in such a bad starting position, right? I had gotten laid off from law enforcement. I found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce. I was a single parent with 3 kids, started teaching at a CDL school making $17 an hour. I didn't start investing until I was 40, so I didn't have the years for compound interest to do their thing. I didn't make a lot of money. Most years I made less than $50,000, even with overtime. And so I had to pick a strategy that met my resources and my decade. I wanted a 10-year timeline to make work optional. Wasn't sure I was going to retire. Ended up being the thing I did. So the number one, Google this, the number one recommended way to start investing in real estate, this comes up often. This is actually the number one recommended way to start in life, is house hacking. Most of us have house hacked. Did you live with your parents past the age of 18? You were probably not paying full market rent. When you rented your first place, did you have roommates? Yes. It's really weird that most of us, when we're renting, we're totally fine having roommates because we think, oh, this makes life easier, I'll get a better start. But don't you dare help me pay my mortgage when I'm the owner. Only help me pay someone else's mortgage while we're renting. That's not how I house hacked. I house hacked by buying a duplex, right? I had 3 kids. I wasn't going to have strangers living in roommates. I did house hack my way through the police academy by having basically a live-in nanny couple that lived with us. But that wasn't to make money, that was to make it possible to go through the police academy. I purchased a duplex to live in one side, fully fenced yard, separate, no shared living space, separate driveways, garages in the middle. Lived in one side, rented out the other. This is how most people talk about starting in real estate. It's one of the easiest ways. You get a low down payment, owner-occupied, best interest rate, 30-year fixed rate debt. You have conventional loans, you can use a VA loan. There's all kinds of ways to house hack a property. You can do a single family house. If you can't stand the idea of somebody touching your duplex, buy a house with an ADU, right? It's 2 houses on one property. I've got this set up. I've got a 2,200 square foot house and a duplex on one property. One of them is an ADU. It's a way to get started where you live on the property, but you reduce your housing expense. Everyone talks about, once you do this, now you can save more. So if you're investing in stocks and you figure out a house hack where you just have roommates, or you rent out the other side of a duplex, or you buy a house with an ADU, now you're paying less for housing because your tenants are paying most of your mortgage. You have more to invest in stocks. That compound interest will happen faster. If you're going to invest in real estate, you have to save down payments, money for closing costs, money for immediate repairs. You have to have reserves that lenders are going to want, so money is a factor. You want to make more money with your job, but if you can reduce your expenses, you can save to invest more. Do you see how the track is when you want to start investing to work towards financial freedom or just have a better financial future? House hacking gets recommended almost all the time. And this, everybody has a reason. Not everybody. Most people have a reason. I can't house hack because kids. I had kids. They were the reason to house hack. I can't house hack because I have a spouse. Do you have to? Don't answer that. They might be watching. Careful with your facial expressions in case you're watching together. I house hacked to get started into real estate because I wasn't making much. I had a short timeline. I house hacked again at about the 8-year mark, purchased a 4-plex, moved from the duplex into the 4-plex, and then I retired in 2022. Here's the thing that people mess up and make this hugest mistake that you can make when it comes to retiring. House hacking is a great way to start investing in real estate. House hacking is a great way to secure your retirement. Now, I'm going to try not to depress you with a story that I've heard several times in my life, but now think of, in your life, have you encountered this story or the people that create this story? An older couple where one is the primary income producer, right? Doesn't matter husband or wife, or husband or wife and wife, don't care. Like I said, I'm trying to help you, not judge you. But one of the individuals in this relationship, unless you're in Utah, it could be one of the 5, is making most of the money and then passes away. So you hear of this older person who has lost their spouse and you feel really bad for them, and they weren't the one making the money, and they might not have a pension, they might not know how to manage the finances, they might have had a business that they don't know how to run and the other person was running it, or whatever it is, but they don't have the income source. So what do? They start renting out rooms in their house. You've heard this story probably dozens of times. I've had friends who've rented rooms from a person that was doing this. The person loses their spouse, so there's such a large economic events and they're in such distress that they go, if I rent out things, I can pay my bills. I'll pay my property taxes, I'll have food, I'll be able to pay my medical care, I'll suffer through this. What if, now just hear me out, what if you actually love your spouse enough to do this before they die? Maybe not have roommates, but I retired in 2022, and then a year later, purchased a duplex on the water, 260-degree water view up top, 260-degree water view for a tenant on the bottom, because my plan for retirement was to spend more time out of the U.S. than in the U.S., right? Colombia, Thailand, gotta go to the Philippines. My plan a couple of years ago was to go to Russia. I think I'll wait. So I could be gone a lot and have somebody at my property and not have that little lizard brain itch in the back of my brain. If I have a $2,000 or a $3,000 mortgage on a property, I have a house hack where I don't have a living expense, where the tenant is actually creating profit for me, so that when I travel, that is the money that is funding my Airbnb, Vrbo, what other places have I rented? Hostels. Best experiences that we cannot share on YouTube, because what happens on YouTube stays on YouTube. There are people who will house hack to reach financial freedom. And most people will think of it in the chronological order that Matt the Lumberjack Landlord did it. House hacked 9 times, right? Moved his family several times. His wife was on board. It was an amazing couple strategy to develop a massive portfolio that generates enough money to buy their ultimate forever dream home. That's what most people think of retirement. I didn't want a large portfolio. I don't want to have to manage a property manager managing a large portfolio like one rental at a time Michael Zuber does. I don't want to manage a large portfolio myself. My goal was the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. So if you want the smallest 4% rule that you need, and you can eliminate or reduce your housing costs, your multiplier of your expenses goes down. So if you're investing in stocks, house hacking is a viable strategy to increase the likelihood of the success in your retirement. Yes, you don't want roommates, probably, right? You might actually like people, but don't get any on you. I am not a people person. I see my tenant get in his car and go to work once in a while. That's about the only interaction that we see, other than when I check to see that the payment was made. When I lived in the fourplex, I saw my tenants in other properties more than I saw the tenants in my units at where I lived. Roommates might be a little bit invasive, intrusive, so I maybe don't recommend it for most people. Not for me. But is there a version of house hacking? Could it be that you buy a place with low down payment, best interest rate to live in it for a year as you start your retirement, and then you Airbnb it when you're traveling? Just a little too much work for me. So I chose a small multifamily. This could be a house with an ADU if you, again, want separate places. You can even put fences between them. So it's no different than having neighbors. So come at me with your arguments as to why you can't do this in the comments. I have thick skin. You can tell me how wrong I am. But I'm telling you that one of the biggest mistakes is not that list I started this video with. It's understanding that the most recommended strategy for starting in real estate is the best recommended strategy for starting your retirement. If you want your questions answered live during a live stream, I look forward to seeing you on a Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Have a day full of awesome.